Most grandmasters will draw this position, but Fabiano Caruana just showed us why he's a genius. We're at the American Cup 2026 and Fabi has just won against Wesley So. Look at this position. White looks to have some initiative here on the king side, and this is gonna head to a rook ending. H5, it looks like a simple move, but Fabi is just breaking through the position of Wesley So. Wesley So's wall defense has been wonderful, however, in this position, black has just collapsed. Fabi opens the game with e4, Wesley e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, knight f6, d3. So we're having the Ruy Lopez opening here with d3, which is the one of the most solid options for white. Bishop c5, knight c3, d6, bishop g5, h6. So here, Fabi takes the first decision of going bishop h4 because he does not want to trade a bishop for the knight at the very opening, because black will simply retake with the queen and there's no compensation of losing the pair of bishops there. So black goes castle, queen d2, bishop b4, pinning the knight, a3, and this is forcing black to take the decision to take the knight on c3. So why did black give up the pair of bishops here? Because the bishop from black does not have any good future here on this diagonal. He will have to waste. He wasted one tempo to come here, and then he will have to wait two other tempos in order for him to place the bishop in a good position. So instead, he did the best move, which is a great move, by trading the bishop for the knight on c3 and queen takes c3. Why did he play queen takes c3? Because he wants to preserve his good structure for the pawns. So knight e7, this is the first mistake of the game here, which allows white to take the knight on f6 and double the pawns on the king side, which is a great move as well. So g takes f6, d4. So here, let's take a moment to analyze this exchange on f6. White just thought, okay, I can take the knight on f6, and then g takes f6 will double his pawns. This is a weakness, some kind of static weakness for the future. However, Wesley is actually a really great grandmaster. We all love his games, and he knows that there is some exceptions to the rules when it comes to doubling the pawns. He wants to come f5 immediately, and if he's able to play f5, f4, and then f5 again, he knows that he's gonna have some counterplay on the king side for black, right? So eventually he's gonna come here and bring all the pieces to attack. That's his plan. He knows that doubling the pawns is a weakness, but he knows what to do next. So white goes d4, c6, bishop b2, f5. So here's the plan that I told you that Wesley was going to do with f5. So Fabi accepts the challenge and he goes e takes f5, e4, knight d2, bishop f5, queen g3, check. So the king must move here or here to h8, so it's on check. Knight c4 is putting an eye to the pawn on d6 and probably at some point go to e5. However, black is definitely not going to let that happen. Probably black should go d5 and then the knight will come to e3, because if black plays d5 and then knight e5, that is not an outpost. Remember that an outpost is some square where the knight is sitting but cannot be kicked from any pawn from the opponent. However, here on e5, black simply plays f6 and the knight has to go home, right? So d5, knight e3, rook g8, intermezzo move. Queen f4 attacking the bishop on f5, so it must move, otherwise we're taking it. Bishop e6, bishop h5, rook g5, g4, defending on h5, and also keeping the pressure to the f7 pawn here. Queen b8. So this is a move that us as club players wouldn't find, or at least I wouldn't, but it's a really good move. Wesley knows that he's under pressure and there is an attack going on the king side, so he wants to trade the queens. White knows it, but now white's gonna take the decision whether to take it or not. The good move from Fabi, queen takes b8, wonderful move. Why? The reason why it's a good move for white is that he's got some initiative on the king side, and he's just 1 to 2 moves in order for him to put all of the pieces to attack the queen on the king side. So rook b8, f4. He opens this file immediately. He knows that he's going to recover the pawn on f3 at some point if black decides to go en passant. So e takes f3, king f2, rook g7, h4, knight c8, g5, knight d6. Bishop takes f3, f6, trying to put pressure to the g5 pawn. Of course, he's gonna go g takes h6 because we want to get rid of all of the pawns that were in front of the king here. King takes h6, rook g1. So we have completed our plan to bring all of our pieces to actually attack the king on this open file, as well as our pieces are just closer to the opponent's king, and we have a lot of initiative here. So rook takes g1, rook takes g1, rook f6, rook f8, which is some kind of a passive move. Rook e1, putting an eye on the bishop on e6 with x-ray. Bishop f5, king g3, good move. So remember that in the endings we must have an active king. That will just guarantee us that we are having a good endgame, and especially if we're just heading to the middle of the board here, right? So this is the plan for white at some point. So he went rook e8, pinning the knight on e3, king f4. Wonderful move here. So the king is going to the action directly, and he's not afraid of anything here. He wants to attack the opponent pieces and try to gain more initiative. So bishop e4, bishop d1, rook g8, c3, just strengthening all of his structure here, which is really healthy. a5, a4, stopping black's space advantage on the queen side. And then bishop g4, rook g7, bishop e2, rook g6. And here's one of the moments where it's a key for Fabiano Caruana, who's just trying to exploit the edge of this slight advantage that he has in this position. What would you play in this position? You can pause the video and try to find out. But the move is wonderful, and it's b3. b3 is actually saying, I'm not allowing your knight to come to c4 and try to exchange any of my pieces. Black is going to be totally fine if he's able to trade the pieces here on the queen side. However, white does not want to trade any pieces because he's attacking right now. So c4, rook e8, bishop g4, f5, rook e2, bishop e2, d takes e4, b takes e4, rook d8, rook d1, rook e8, rook d2, defending on e2 for anything, king g6, knight f1, king f5, knight g3, knight c8. So here's the position where you can see that white is gonna get better and better here, and the right move here in this position is h5. h5 is breaking through the position of Wesley So, and Wesley had a wonderful wall defense prepared for this kind of positions. However, this position is just collapsing for black now. The king is way too active. The rook and the bishop for white is better. Look at the knight. Is really far away from the action, while the bishop and the rook are just really active. So rook g1, rook g4 check, king f5, rook g6. So we're cutting off the king here. If you can see, the king cannot move here. He only has this square because everything is almost controlled. So we're getting closer to the mate here. C takes d4, bishop g4, bishop c8. This is just really good chess. Why would you trade your bishop for a knight that's on the edge of the board at the 8th rank for black? Well, the reason is really simple. You just trade it because you're gonna take the pawn on b6, and all of the defense for black is just fading away. Now we're just gonna go rook b5. We're gonna protect our pawn. We're gonna take on a5. And we're gonna eventually take on d4 because the king is not anything but stable here on e5. So in this position, Wesley So has just resigned the game, and I hope you enjoyed the analysis I did for this video. You can subscribe, follow, and give it a like. Have a good one.